Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever it is in the world that you are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the iFormula League Round 2 for the F1 series here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. I am your commentator slash broadcaster, Alyssa, today, and we have one heck of a race for you all. We have two races, actually, for you all today. We will have a feature race joined by a sprint race at some point. So we will have our main race first, which will involve the, I believe, 30-ish laps of action. And then we will have a sprint race, which is around about 12 laps, 12 to 15 laps, though I will double check during the warm-up between the two exactly how much it is. Currently, at the moment, we are in the historic layout for the Circuit Barcelona Catalunya, which ignores the final chicane and also increases the hairpin near the end of the lap in the third sector. So the third sector, pretty different from how it is to what you would normally expect. However, our regular first and second sectors, pretty standard. You should be familiar with it. Now, let's load up the qualifying time so far. Let's see who is on laps, who is ready to go with the race so far, as we will jump on board, actually, with Ben to kick things off. Let's see what he is currently up to. Currently leading the way with a 113.8. Now, I am aware that some of these guys are actually a little bit quicker than a 113.8. I saw a 112.8 in practice. 25-minute qualifying session as well, by the way, just so you know. They may not push it right away. They might just get in a banker and then proceed to push it later on. But Ben, definitely a driver to look out for. Has seemed very quick in practice. Riley Jacob, another incredibly quick driver, and as we can see on the bottom of the screens, he is indeed going fastest so far. We will jump on board with him, see how he can finish the lap. Going through the last couple of corners, we'll see whether or not he can get himself on pole position. And just rounding the final two corners now. So quick in these cars, of course. A little bit, maybe even a little bit of braking through the final corner, because it is just so much faster as he does dip into the 112.9. A tenth off what he did in practice, so potentially there is still time left, but we will see later on. We have some good luck messages in the chat. Ben and Riley will have some good battles. Absolutely. We're expecting it. We are expecting it, absolutely. And, you know, it's good to be back. It's good to be back in the iFormula League. It is definitely, it feels nice to be back in the broadcast booth, broadcasting for all of you again. Hopefully, we can make sure it's a good one together. Obviously, if any of you do have any comments, anything you'd like to say, feel free to drop that in the comments, and, you know, let me know how you think we're getting on. And will I broadcast the F3 as well? Unfortunately not. There are commitments I have on Sundays that mean, unfortunately, I cannot broadcast F3. But I will try my best to give you an amazing F1 broadcast, and then the F3 broadcast we do hand over to the guys over at, I believe it's Team Goon Squad, who do that. I want to say the names are somewhere. I believe it is Finley who does the broadcasting for that one, along with a little bit of a team as well helping on. And you know, they've done a great job so far. They helped me out. I was ill last week, so I wasn't able to make it, but we've recovered, as Oyvind is currently up on purple through Sector 1, potentially going to be purple through Sector 2 as well. And just as I say that, he makes a mistake. Let's see. What happened here, then? No power. Interesting. Seems like no mistake, he just didn't have it. Interestingly enough, that was, yeah, he was purple through the first sector. Was interested to see whether or not he could improve on a time, but hey, unfortunately that stuff happens. But yeah, talking about the layout a bit more for the how things go in terms of you know, what we do for the sprint, what we do for the feature race, how the point system works, and all of that. So, going into the first race, which will be your feature race, it will be similar-ish to the point standings in F1. The major difference between this and the F1 point system is that there is a bit less of a gap between first and second, as well as second and third. So there's a bit more space, a bit more freedom to actually be able to gain points and make the championship close. Then the sprint system is a 12 points for first, following on by dropping 1 point every single position after that. So in theory, with the drivers we have today, with the amount of drivers we have on track today, just finishing the race will net you some points. And you know what they say about points? They do mean prizes. Riley Jacob currently improving on his lap time. Joan Luco as well, currently improving on his lap time. One thing as well to note is that unfortunately I did not get a chance to put the teams out there. So while it may look like on the stream that some drivers have the same colors and are part of the same team, I will try to explain who is in what team so that you guys can get an idea as to what that looks like. As I will bring up some of the driver details, actually. I will hide the qualifying mode for a second so that we can take a look at the lovely overlay in all of its glory, and we can see lovely previews of the cars as well, so you can know who you're looking out for when they're close and battling hard. As I believe Riley Jacob did just improve to a 1:12.7, so that is the fastest lap I have seen so far. Troy Banks hasn't set a lap time yet, currently the only one not to do so. But the top three, pretty close. Ben Goldthorpe, Riley, all very close, within 0.5 of a second of each other. Joan Luca within that 1 second gap to first, so, you know, time can be found, can be made. And we'll have to just wait and see what that ends up looking like. Because it's one thing to qualify on pole position, it's an entirely another thing to win the race from pole. Now, of course, we expect a lot of these drivers, or at least the ones near the top anyway, to be pretty comfortable with the car. It is still relatively new, of course, only coming into iRacing this season. I believe it came in... I want to say it came in around the same time as the BMW LMDH came in, so the start of this season. A new point system should make the league much more competitive indeed. Exactly, that's what we're hoping for. Of course, the point systems and the way that there's now two races, so you have... Even if your main race doesn't go as well, you can always have that sprint, so you can at least try and gain something back from it. And in the overlay, I will sort out the teams, as I said, for next week, so that everyone knows who is with who. I will change a couple of the car colours as well. Still was working on this overlay, I think, like 5 minutes before the stream, so... It was, yeah, a bit of last minute practice came in, but hey, we try our best. But the new cars definitely look a little bit harder to control than the W12 used to. The W13, obviously, they changed the philosophy on how F1 cars generate downforce with, instead of being a lot of complex aero elements over the front of the car, and on the rear of the car, as well as on the side of the car, they've gone more underfloor. So that's why you see that massive rear diffuser on the back. The tucked-in side pods as well, very much a Mercedes signature from this season. And the side skirts, the really big, long side skirts that are trying to keep that high-pressure air underneath the car to keep it sucked to the floor. Obviously, once all of that high-pressure air goes, you have a lot less downforce than you used to. In low-speed corners, you will very much notice that lack of grip that you had compared to previous days gone by. But makes for a much more interesting car to drive. how to join the championship. So what you need to do is you need to go to the website, www.iformulaleague.com, and then in the website you should be able to also find a link to the Discord, as well as, I want to say, somewhere, is it in... At least I definitely hope that they have, yeah, so on the website, on the homepage, if you scroll down, you'll be able to see that you can join the League Discord server, sign up as a driver, there's a hyperlink to do it, and then you will have to create your own team. You can potentially find some drivers who are looking for teams, as well as the... I want to say in the Discord there is a... drivers and teams, and also recruitment channel. So you'll be able to get involved and come join us. Absolutely come join us. If you have iRacing, you have the W13, you have the tracks needed, come racing with us. All of our splits are broadcasted, so F1 and F3 series are both broadcasted, F1 being on the Saturdays, F3 being on your Sundays. You know, get involved. It'll always be nice to see more fresh faces on track. It gives me a lot more to commentate on as well. And that's always good. I like talking, so that's why commentating for me, perfect. Because I get to just talk about absolute nonsense for a little while. Totally on our Brazilian W13 group, absolutely. That sounds amazing. Thank you very much for that one. Can't wait to see you guys on track, hopefully. It'd be nice to get a bit more representation from all over the world. Obviously, it is open, as long as you are willing to wake up at the time that the race is on for wherever it is you are in the world. Then you can absolutely join from anywhere. We've got mainly a US representation, I should say. But we do have a couple of European drivers. We have a couple of British drivers. We've got an Austrian, an Italian that's on your screen right now. And yeah, it's really, really fun. This league has been going for a little while now. I've seen it grow. And it definitely seems like it's in a really good place. So come get involved. Come join us. I'm sure we'll make it great, as qualifying has had 14 minutes so far gone. 14 and a half, if we want to be precise. And so far, it looks as though really no one's able to challenge Riley Jacobs' lap time of a 112.7. So it is looking as though, for now, Riley is the man to beat. I do wonder whether or not anyone's going to be able to do so. I will load up the qualifying mode as well, so we can get back to seeing the splits and seeing whether or not anyone is starting to do purple lap times. Guanluca does actually improve his lap times as purple in the final sector, so the final sector obviously a little bit easier without the chicane, and much more representative of what this circuit is like in real life now after all the changes that they made to Barcelona. Obviously we now have the hairpin section, which is a little bit more representative of what we'll see in the real world. Unfortunately, we don't have, in iRacing at least, we don't have a scan of the new circuit, but we'll have to wait and see. Only big challenge Riley will have is the sprint. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about obviously the point system is, as we see, unfortunately, Frank losing it a little bit there in the hairpin. And yeah, so the great thing about the point systems and the way that it will work is hopefully Riley will have, you know, he'll be favourite for the feature race, which is our first race. That's our longer of the two. And then potentially after that, he may have to work back through and prove that in a short amount of time he can gain those places, because 12 laps to 15 laps in this car, that's not a lot. those will go by pretty quickly. So you got to make your moves quick in the sprint race. Which means there's going to be a lot more action in the sprint as well, for sure. As the championship standings are right now, I will actually read those out to you because I don't have them on the broadcast yet, but I do have the series standings up on my screen. So at the moment, Hannes, who is currently qualified in 6th position, is leading the way on 30 points total, and that is the number 90 car driving for Intend Flat Out Sim Racing. The second driver, we do have Racing Lab 2-3, actually. So car number 82, which is Oyvind Haugland, who is on 29 points, and Riley Jacob, who is his teammate, also on 29 points. So second and third, incredibly close, but they are teammates, so keep that in mind. Potentially, that might be their strategy, but if this is a circuit Oyvind is struggling with, which it seems like it is, 2.1 seconds off its teammate is pretty far, then potentially we'll see maybe a bit of team orders, a bit of Racing Lab trying to just do their thing, trying to make sure that Riley can get the best position possible. And then in 4th position in the championship with 28 points, it is Rowley for Intend Sim Racing. So we do have some amount of drivers racing for Intend. There are quite a few. And they are all incredibly close. I mean, the top 4 separated by 2 points. After that, we do have Marianne, who is not racing today, unfortunately. So they're on 23 points, and they will stay on 23 points for the next round. And that will mean that, I believe, Andrew, even if he just finishes both races today, he will overtake Marianne on the season standings. Because he is on 21 points. He will gain at least 2 from... Oh, okay. Cool. Was a reserve for last race. Okay. Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Which is why we're seeing Gianluca here, who has no points. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Right. I'm with you. Well, it was a good result then, for the reserve driver at least, so yeah, that's always cool to see. We like to see a nice underdog story with the reserve drivers coming in, loving life and racing in the bigger category and doing well. I do wonder, can we get a little bit of... Do I have the cameras loaded? I don't think I do, unfortunately. I was going to try and see if I can get some of the speed cam shots. Oh, we do have a couple of incident points already coming through from race control due to incident levels. The start into T1 is gonna be... It's always interesting, I think. The start in a lot of racing series tends to be quite difficult, especially considering standing starts. If the drivers... So if Riley, Rowley, and Ben get off to a good start, we're hoping that T1 is nice and clean. Potentially the guys further back will have a big run onto the... like, into T1 for the first time, though, so... It's not as easy as it seems in terms of... as Oyvind just sets a new personal best and puts himself P4. But you see the run down to T1 is actually really long in comparison to a lot of other circuits. And T1 isn't exactly a corner you can really go side by side in easily. Especially considering the tires are going to be cold. I know I was speaking to the Bicers earlier before I came on the broadcast, and the Bicers were saying that around here, tires are a big problem. They get up to temperature quite quickly, which is quite nice, but they overheat very quickly. With this circuit being very fast, especially the final sector being a lot faster than it usually is, these tires take a beating around here, so... Potentially we'll see turn 1. I'm hoping people take it cautious. But I always say that. I always say, I hope people be cautious. And then, you know, things happen. Turn 1s happen. And unfortunately, in some cases, the, you know, some people win and lose at turn 1. I think people just need to remember you cannot win the race in turn 1, but you can certainly end it there. It's always my favourite saying. Let's take a look at a couple of the other drivers and see what they're doing in terms of lap time. Jacob just on an outlap, actually, so what we will do is we'll keep on board with Troy, because he is on an outlap, and we will see what Troy is able to do. We might even go on a onboard from a roll bar cam, and we will take a bird's eye view almost, bit of a T-cam view of what it's like around the historic Catalonia while we have 2.5 minutes less to go. Braking incredibly late as always in these F1 cars, turning it in. I think the apex is quite nice actually for Troy, maybe a bit too much curb, but flat out round turn 2, braking just underneath the bridge into turn 3 or turn 4, depending on how you want to describe the turns. Always a very tricky braking zone, this one, as the track falls away from you. You want to try and use as much of the curbing as you can on the exit, and even if you do hit the curbing on the inside, not always the best place to be. Very, very fast. Chicane line corner here. Just a slight lift for these cars, maybe even flat out in qualifying trim, as we go to the later hairpin, obviously. Not looking for the earlier one, which will give us a slingshot almost into some of the slower corners on the track. Now, normally, we would be looking at a chicane, but we aren't here. Slight lift through there, that last corner. A little bit more of a corner than it usually is, obviously, in these cars now, with the added bonus of the last corner, or, sorry, the second to last corner being basically flat out. But it doesn't look like Troy was able to improve massively. Oh, maybe he did. I missed exactly what his lap time was, but nevertheless, that was a lap around Barcelona Catalunya, the historic layout in an F1 car, which is something that, you know, maybe not a lot of people really expect to see, but hey, it's cool. It's really, really fun. The last corner actually meaning a bit more than it usually does, rather than just being flat out. But it seems like everyone is pretty much done with their lap times, as Oyvind, I don't think we'll be able to get to the line before qualifying is over. He's going to be taking it nice and easy in P4. Doesn't need to really risk anything, so brings it back to the pit lane, unless he thinks that he can make it to the line in 7 seconds, which, unless you're going to go straight through the barrier, Oyvind, I don't think it's going to happen. But Alex Shanna not having the greatest qualifying result down near the bottom of the field, as we do have our race 1. We are gridding, of course, but I will bring up the qualifying results for you and the grid for race 1, so that we can get all of that information sorted. So, on pole position, we do have Riley Jacob, who qualifies with a 1:12.745. Then in second place, we do have Rolly Shilter? Shilter. Oh, that's the name. Shilter. I will try my best to not butcher names, but of course, if I do, let me know how to pronounce your name in the Discord as well. I do try my best. But moving into third position on the grid, we do have Ben Goldthorpe with Oyvind Haugland in 4th position. 5th position, we have Hannes Schlogel, is how I'm going to pronounce that name. Feel free to tell me if that's wrong. Giancarlo Iliano in 6th, with 7th Jacob Bisa, 8th Troy Banks. Further down the field, we do have Frank Bisa in 9th, Andrew Bedrosian in 10th, Alex Shanna in 11th, with Angel Ponce in 12th position. Who do you think the favourite is for the race? For Heat 1, I definitely believe there is only one driver who is going to be up there as a top-tier contender, and that indeed is Riley Jacob. If he can get a good start, look for this to be pretty much all done and dusted, as we do wait for the lights to come on. We go to 5 red lights, and we are green here from Catalonia. Looks like it was a bit of a delayed start from everyone, but clean getaway from Riley Jacob. He's able to extend the gap almost immediately from Rowley behind, or even gets the jump on Guancala as Ben Goldthorpe. I don't know what happened on his start, but already he seems like he is dropping positions down there in 5th. It seems like it was a bit of a clean start from everyone. Nobody really getting any bad luck in terms of traffic. Everyone making it through quite clean as we go through now into turn 4, and everybody, surprisingly enough, keeping it nice and clean. We do have 33 laps, or potentially an hour and a half if it takes that long. I don't think it will. So it will be 33 laps this race. As a mistake there from, I believe that's Troy Banks, to allow Hannes up the inside, and potentially going to allow Alex Shanna to go through, and then maybe even Andrew as well. Andrew definitely looking to try and go up the inside of Alex Shanna. Alex having to defend from both drivers, having to attack Troy and also defenders. Who is that off in the background? That is Jacob Bisa, and I believe Andrew Bedrosian as well off on the hairpin. I believe that was the exit of the corner, so we may have to jump back and see what happened there, but I believe that's only one of the major incidents so far. At the moment, fastest lap obviously does go to Riley Jacob off of the start of the race. You would expect so, obviously qualifying on pole and finishing first on the first lap. But it looked like it was a pretty clean getaway for most of the drivers, as we will jump on board with Ben Goldthorpe, who is trying to defend from Hannes at the moment. These two drivers, seemingly, Ben was the quicker in qualifying, but that doesn't always translate to race pace. So I'll have to wait and see how he goes on with only 1 lap so far of our 33 been and done. Jacob Bisa already back to the pit lane, by the way. Already having to repair that car and then get back on track. So we will have to double check to see exactly what happened. First few laps of this race, obviously no DRS, so you have to make all of your passes with either ERS management or by just being brave enough on the brakes. Maybe trying to use the tyre strategy to your advantage as well. I believe there might be a pit stop, mandatory one required in this session, so we'll have to wait and see what people's pit strategy ends up being as well later on down the line, as our fastest laps are starting to come through now. Riley Jacob doing a 1:16.3, fastest of anyone so far, with Oyvind the second fastest with a 1:16.4, trying to hunt down Rolly Scheitler further up the field. And we're going to have to wait and see whether or not Oyvind can do it. His gap is quite far back, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not he can catch up. But a battle brewing for 8th position between Frank Bisa and Alex Shanna. Frank so far didn't really seem to have the greatest of starts, and unfortunately with all of the other incidents did actually enable a couple of people to get back through. Alex Shanna actually being one of the highest gainers off the start. As who was that off the track? That was Troy Banks, I believe, who has indeed crashed and is... yeah, that is a broken W13. Unfortunately for him, he is out. Potentially will use his fast repair and get back out there, but that is going to be a big issue, as Frank Bisa is also back in the pit lane for some reason. Let me jump on board with Frank and we'll see what happens. So going into the hairpin, and oh, did he get hit in the back by Alex Shanna? And that car is beached. You are not going anywhere, unfortunately, Frank. That seems like that was a little bit of contact between Alex Shanna and Frank Bisa. Let's try and get another shot of this in the TV cam, and indeed it was. Oh no. Oh dear. Alex Shanna being a bit of a naughty boy. And that will certainly be looked at post-race, I imagine. I'm sure Frank is not going to be happy with that. As there is a battle now brewing for 9th position because of Troy Banks and Frank having those issues. And Andrew getting past pretty easily there on Jacob and gaining one more position. Starting to make his way back up the grid. And already it seems like there's been quite a few crashes so far in this race, and not ones that can really be put a blame on anyone except for that Alex Shanna incident, which I think that one was pretty clear, unfortunately, for Alex. That was a bit of a lock-up of the brakes and nowhere to go. I do want to actually jump back on board with Troy Banks and see what happened here. So Troy Banks, this was the incident he had, and oh, unfortunate for him. That is going to be a race ender. I would like to have seen him hold his brakes though. But it's okay, no harm, no foul, nobody got hurt. As we will jump back on board with Rowley as a battle is starting to break out for 3rd position. As I will change the timing screen so we can keep on board with multiple battles, hopefully. Or at least keep an eye on multiple battles. As Oyvind has finally caught up to Rowley, was actually lapping quicker and consistently quicker than what Rowley was able to do. So now, actually having caught up, can he use the additional pace he has to make his way by? DRS is active, so we will see that rear flap pop open. And indeed we do. Oyvind going to use the extra speed that he's got as a 116.1 from Riley Jacobs so far. Oyvind to the inside makes it nice and easy with DRS assistance, but does mess up out of the exit of turn 1. Going into turn 2, maybe Rowley can fight back here. But Rowley not able to, unfortunately, get the switch back. Maybe wasn't even expecting Oyvind to be so slow in the second part of the corner. Maybe had to adjust his own line a little bit to make sure that he made it and not had any other further incidents. But that will be a battle to continue watching for sure. But Riley Jacobs' pace at the moment pushing it on a 116.1. Maybe there's a strategy here developing for the two teammates between Oyvind and Riley Jacob. Maybe Oyvind has told Riley, hey mate, I've gotten past my guy. We're P1, P2. Let's start pushing. You know, can you use attack mode? Can you, like, get further in front? Can you build a gap so that way we can, you know, try and take hold of this race together? I can give you a bit more of a buffer by attacking Rowley for a few laps. Maybe even get past him. Indeed, that is what's happened. And immediately you see the lap time drop off. He did a 116.1 that last lap. And then immediately does a 117.1 this lap. So have to wonder whether or not he used all of his ERS that last lap, or potentially just made a mistake this one. As Ben Goldthorpe does indeed make a pass. DRS assistance, I believe, down the straight. We will go back and just double check that, of course. So going down the main straight, Ben Goldthorpe to the inside, and of course with DRS assistance, no way to defend it. And Hannes has to take the back seat for now. Going into turn 1, just has to follow through, and that is a position gain from Ben. Still down 2 positions off the start, so unfortunately, Ben Goldthorpe not really doing as well as he probably would like so far. But of course, we still do have quite a lengthy time left. Not even a third way through the race yet. But it is one that we will probably get to soon enough, as Andrew Bedrosian is coming into the pit lane from P9. We do have to wonder, of course, whether or not people will potentially try an early pit stop, maybe even move from mediums to hards and try and do a one-stop all the way to the end. I'm not sure if that's going to be a valid strategy, or whether you just want to go medium softs if you can, or even maybe medium soft if it's required, absolutely required. Obviously you want to be in the pit lane as little time as possible. Any fan of motorsport will know that pit lanes are slow. Medium soft will be the ideal strat. We have some insider info in the chat, of course. And of course, everyone who is hanging out and enjoying, feel free to hit the like, show your love for us, share it around with your friends as well, get yourself involved, join the Discord. We absolutely love having everyone hanging out here, of course, in the iFormula League. As the closest battle on track so far is between Hannes Schugel and Ben Goldthorpe, as I believe the car they're coming up to is, I want to say a lapped car, but I'm not sure who. I believe that would potentially be Troy Banks, given the fact that Troy is one of the only people who has pit, or maybe even Andrew. In fact, it was Andrew, so we have found the answer. As Hannes Schugel for the N10 Flat Out Racing team will continue trying to push on. Are they able to do the same move that happened to them a lap ago? And unfortunately not quite close enough out of the final corner. Now you've got the dirty air to contend with as well, so it's going to be really hard to keep that gap. It's going to be really hard to keep that pressure on. It will be interesting to see indeed how they're going to extend the medium tyres, they're going to extend the medium stints, because of course, if you can extend the mediums long enough and go to medium soft, it will be the fastest race strategy. Or at least I suppose it depends on how easy you have to take these mediums. We know they're going to take a beating around here, especially in these W13 cars. These W13 cars are not easy on their tyres, so a bit of fingertip driving has to be done to keep everything nice and smooth. As we will stay on board with Hannes, just to see whether or not Hannes can really battle with Ben, but it looks like the dirty air, unfortunately, is not quite enough. And the pace difference, Ben really is starting to bring himself back up towards Guanluca. If Hannes can at least stay within DRS range, however, potentially Hannes can use the fact that Ben is faster than them to gain more time, start going towards Guanluca, and then challenge them together. I believe, however, Guanluca, Ben, and Hannes are two completely different teams, so we'll have to wait and find out that one at least. I believe Guanluca and Hannes are on the same team, Ben and Rowley are on the same team as well. Very similar colour schemes though, so quite hard to notice on track. Which of course is why we have the driver details up on your screen so that we can see who is part of who is working with who. As Hannes unfortunately doesn't have DRS down that back straight going into the hairpin, so unfortunately wasn't really able to use that slipstream. Very similar teams like Red Bull and AlphaTauri apparently is the explanation I've been received, so there we go. That says all we need to know. And what is going on here? I believe Ben Goldthorpe is already making a move up the inside of Guanluca, and that is a move done and dusted. DRS assistance down the main straight. Ben makes another one in the exact same way he's done so far. DRS moves very common around Catalonia, of course. And you know, that's about as easy as you want it. You don't want it much harder than that, so it is always good to see that Ben can make those moves. Now he needs to start running away, and can he have the pace to catch up to Rowley in front, or even Riley and Oyvind? It is going to be the battle to watch, of course, as I believe we do have some other incidents further down the order. Jacob has crashed. Angel Ponce also crashed. So let's see what happened with the Jacob Beiser incident. So getting past a back marker, going into the hairpin, locking up, and unfortunately, that is, yet again, another spin from Jacob. No damage, which is always good. As let's see, what is this incident with Angel? Is this going to be similar to the Jacob incident? No, it's just stopping to get around. So, well, it looked like there was maybe a crash. Nothing really happened. So, some uncharacteristic mistakes already starting to come through. Medium tyres obviously seeming like they are not really the tyre you want to be on anymore. But you've only done 12 laps. If you want to go to softs, you probably want to try and get to at least lap 22, 23. Doing 10 laps on softs, though, would be a bit of a struggle. As you can see there, a representation of all the drivers' flags as well. Just so you can see that we do indeed have the American Army racing with us. So, for those of you interested in joining the league, let's try and take the fight back to them. Oyvind, of course, doing a great job at doing that. I believe he's Norwegian. Though I do forget. My knowledge on geography and flags is maybe not as good as it could be. And this is about the part of the race where things start dying down a little bit. People start getting in their rhythm, start getting in their groove. And everyone's just trying to make it now. Through the tyres, they're trying to make sure that they can, you know, at the very least, they're trying to make sure that they can make it to their pit stop window without any issues. That's the goal right now. Indeed, the pace has started to drop off for a few drivers. Riley Jacob not able to do those low 16s he was able to do earlier, same with Oyvind. Still in the 16s, but only just about. And it does seem like Ben is trying to put the pressure on. He is starting to gain a bit more time on his teammate, I believe, in Rowley. I know it's these types of situations that we start thinking about the grander picture. Where is everyone going to end up? What's the points going to look like later on as well? Because, of course, if the race ends like it does at the moment, Riley Jacob will end up becoming the leader in terms of your F1 Season 5 standings over Hannes. Hannes not having the greatest result. It's still going to be interesting to see whether or not Hannes can get a good result in the sprint and at least recover some of that time. You would imagine it will be... Certainly the attempt will be there. Definitely Oyvind is faster than his teammate as well at the moment, so that's also interesting to think about is... If he is that much faster, should he try to extend the gap, or should he try to pit earlier, get the undercut strategy? And if he gets the undercut strategy, what's he doing with it? Like, is he trying to just time it so that he can get a free pit stop, doesn't have to fight anyone, can just come out in some clean air? Because you're going to lose quite a bit of time if you have to fight through anybody on the pit stops, so you want to try and extend at least long enough to where you can get a gap and you can start really pushing that advantage you have. Does Riley Jacob and Oyvind Haugland want to do? Of course, being teammates, the other thing you have to consider is, are they going to stack? Are they going to pit a different laps? Are they going to have two completely different strategies in mind? The other thing as well about doing pit stops is, as you might expect, you do have to worry about, can I hit my pit box? Because if you miss your pit box, potentially that 2-second gap that we see between Riley and Oyvind, as we are on board with Oyvind, of course, that gap that we see at the moment, that 2-second gap, if he misses his pit box, that's that gap completely gone. So you got to nail your pit stop when it is this close. Same with Gianluca and Hannes as well. At the moment, the Beast is not having the greatest time. Alex Shanna also not having the greatest time on track either. Alex has gained 4 positions off of where he qualified, so at least there is that to talk about, but obviously being that far off already, he is 1 minute and 7 seconds off of Riley, Jacob and Oyvind, and not really lapping as quick either, so potentially we may see Alex Shanna get lapped at some point during this race as Riley and Oyvind are taking control of the main race and proving that as a team they are the ones to look out for. They are the pleb racings of the yesteryear, as we had in F1 before, with Igor Filipic, if any of you remember that name, in F1, in the IFL League. Of course, I remember that name. Him being a driver underneath my Bono skills way back when. That was 2 seasons ago, though. Of course, things have changed since then. And now there's the new kids on the block. Riley Jacob, Oyvind Haugland. 2 incredibly talented drivers in their own right. And 2 drivers that are very much proving, time after time, that they are the ones to beat. They are the fastest guys, and if you want to beat them, you're going to have to come and get it. Practice would not go amiss, of course. As we are now on to lap 18 of 33 for our main race today. And it will be followed off by a sprint at some point after. The sprint itself obviously going to be surprisingly hard for these drivers to make anything happen, as we do have another DRS-enabled overtake here from Hannes on Gianluca. I imagine being teammates, Gianluca's not going to fight it too hard. It's just going to let him go through. If that driver is faster, then use that advantage and start working together to try and catch up, maybe, to that gap that has generated to Ben. If you can. That's the other thing as well. If Hannes was able to save tyres, potentially, they're now making a push for it on the next couple of laps. And we are imagining pit stops will be happening around about lap 21, anywhere between 21 and, I would imagine, lap 25 would be the latest you'd want to pit. Obviously, the later you can pit, probably the better, but you don't want to do it at the risk of being very slow. If you're keeping within the 117s or the 118s, however, it looks like you're going to be pretty good on pace, as Riley, Jacob and Oyvind Haugland are coming into the pits already. Rody is following in behind, so on lap 19, we're having people come into the pits. Now, I don't think the softs are going to make it. But he does switch. Riley does switch to the softs. Oyvind probably also softs, but the iRacing display is telling me he is on mediums. And Rowley has also switched to the softs, so I don't know if Oyvind has just done mediums to mediums, which would seem incorrect as a decision to make. But both of them coming in at the same time, on the same team, and leaving Ben Goldthorpe to now be leading the race. Hannes and Gianluca now second and third, but do still need to make a pit stop. So everybody has made a pit stop except for the top 3. So keep an eye on the top 3. See when they come into the pit lane. Obviously, the main goal is to try and pit as late as possible so the softs can keep as fresh as possible for as long as possible. If you can keep the soft tyres fresh and you can keep that pace going, then you're going to be in a very good position later on, of course. Taking most of the points in the feature race is obviously preferred over taking most of the points in the sprint. If you can do both, though, you're in for a really good shout. As first lap around for Oyvind and Riley, we'll see what their lap times are going to be in comparison to everyone else, and just to see what that difference in pace would look like. These cars obviously so much lower to the ground now as well. Surprisingly, we haven't seen any porpoising, so there is that. At least the FIA standards that we all know and love to stop these drivers having migraines in the middle of the race has, you know, transitioned itself into the sim racing world as well. So for those of you in motion rigs, you're not going to be too far off. And Riley Jacob already having caught up to the back of Gianluca. Keep in mind, Gianluca hasn't even pit yet, so Riley Jacob doing an incredible job at catching up and then almost passing immediately after, before Gianluca needs to pit. And this shows you just how quick these soft tyres are. They are just so much faster than these mediums once they're up to temperature. And I'm sure with DRS assistance, with the soft tyres, it's going to be easy for Riley, as a 1:15.633 does come in, and a 1:15.639 from his teammate, so incredibly close lap times, as Riley Jacob does get past, but a 1:15.4 from Rowley, so it is on. Rowley is starting to put the pressure on. The gap is a little bit bigger at the moment, 8 seconds between Rowley and Oyvind, but if he can keep up that pace, who knows what we might see. Owen Haugland not really able to make his way past Gianluca just yet. So we'll keep on board with Riley Jacob, trying to look for the move on Hannes, and I am sure that we will see this move be made with DRS assistance opened now. Down the straight, into the hairpin. There's no way you can defend from that. And that's another move made from Riley, as I believe Oyvind tried to do the same, but couldn't quite get past Gianluca yet. So Gianluca doing an incredible job at holding up Oyvind, which is obviously meaning that the gap between Riley and Oyvind is extending massively, and also the gap between Oyvind and Rowley is decreasing, probably more than you would want it to. But with DRS this time, super close. The move has been made, and that indeed is position gained. Back up to P3, which of course will turn into P2 at some point when Ben pits. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. But Rowley pitting on lap 18. It'll be interesting to see when everyone else pits. Hannes has pit on lap 21. Alex, Jacob, Frank, Angel, Andrew and Troy do still all need to pit again, even though they have already made one stop this race, but that's due to things like damage, which, you know, it does happen, unfortunately, in the sim racing world, but they do have a fast repair, so they can get straight back on it. And of course, we want to give a massive shout out to our sponsors for helping us put on the show that we have, the Prowl Sim Racing, as well as Butt Kicker, Extreme Scoring, who we will hear from later on as well, as Riley Jacob just puts in the fastest lap of the race with a 1:15.1 and overtakes Ben Goldthorpe to do it, and then Oyvind comes in with a 1:14.3. Oyvind is absolutely pushing mad right now to try and make that move. And of course, this is one thing that we need to see, is whether or not Oyvind can actually catch up to his teammate. Something that you would think, with how close they were coming out of the pit stop, that it was going to continue on, but Oyvind getting held up by Gianluca, and then, well, I say held up, he was battling Gianluca, wasn't able to get past as easily as Riley did, And now, that gap has extended to almost 4 seconds between the two drivers. Only 10 more laps of the glorified oval to go. I say glorified oval due to the fact that this this racetrack is a bit of a glorified oval when you think about it. And Rowley has got past his teammate, of course, so Ben Goldthorpe will have to probably come out around where Hannes is, you would imagine. But we'll have to wait and see. As Ben Goldthorpe is now out on track. And where is Hannes? Just going into turn 1 now. So, unfortunately, even after the pit stops, Ben Goldthorpe not really in a position to be challenged. And so he's going to hold that P4 probably all the way to the line now, you would imagine. With those soft tyres having only needing to make around about 9 laps. 9 laps and change. So we'll be interested to see if anyone else further down the field will attempt to go for fastest lap. Of course, fastest lap does net you an extra point. So if you can gain on the fastest lap, you will gain a point regardless of where you finish. So if you were to finish, say for example 6th, and you had the fastest lap, then you would gain the points for 6th plus 1. And the other thing as well is there is an additional point for safest driver. Now that one I cannot unfortunately work out. I unfortunately cannot work out where the safest driver would be because unfortunately the SDK doesn't give me that information. It will give me the off track so I can hazard a guess, but it won't give me things like car contacts and all the rest of it. And of course, if people are tied, then I'm not sure how the stewards work out who was the safest driver. I would imagine it would be given to just whoever finished higher up. But we would have to wait and see. As the race has seemingly died down a little bit, hopefully the sprint is a little bit more action-packed than the heat race has been. But of course, with it being Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, it's not exactly the the most entertaining circuit in the world. But what I will do is just go over the F1 schedule for the rest of the season. So we do have the 33-lap Grand Prix race today, which is obviously what's happening now at Catalunya, followed by a 10-lap sprint. Then next week, or at least I believe it's next week, the 4th of February, indeed it is, we are off to Silverstone for a 26-lap race, followed off by an 8-lap sprint. Then a week off before we are back to the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, 22 laps with a 7-lap sprint there for that race. Then a week after that, so the 25th of February, we do have Zandvoort for the Dutch GP. It's going to be an interesting circuit for these cars. We'll have to wait and see how they get on with that. And then everyone's favourite circuit on the 11th of March, which is the Monza Italian Grand Prix. Then the week after that, we are at the Austrian GP for the Red Bull Ring, followed off by, on April Fool's Day, we are at the Hungaroring, which is not a joke. We are actually at the Hungaroring for a 35-lap race with a 10-lap sprint. Then my favourite circuit on the 8th of April, Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix, followed off by the American Grand Prix, which is not being hosted at COTA. I'm sure the moment that I said that it's not being hosted at COTA, I heard some applause, as it's instead being hosted at Road America, which is an interesting choice. It'll be interesting to see how the F1 cars compare to the Indy cars around there. Of course, Indy cars quite commonly going to Road America. That is, of course, at the 22nd of April, where we will see that from our F1 guys. And then 29th of April, we are at the Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and ending the season at the Brazilian Grand Prix for Interlagos. So that is your calendar for the F1, just a quick run through as to what circuits we're visiting. Of course, a lot of those names being incredibly, incredibly common. Names that you will know. Some of you will love, some of you will hate, of course. You always have your favourites. And that is one thing for everyone who's watching so far. What is your favourite race circuit? Can be F1, can be sports cars, can be local tracks. What is your favourite racetrack of all time? There's some conversations flowing as the race has died down, obviously. And, you know, as I say, I like talking. So I'm going to keep doing it. And oh no, Jacob Beiser has had an incident and crashed again. See what happened here. So out of turn 1, he just pulls off to the side of the road. For some reason, he goes back to the pit lane. I don't know what on earth that was about. Is he on track at all now? No, he is not. Jacob Beiser is no longer in this motor race. So for those of you with any sort of spotter's guide, get out your marker of doom on Jacob Beiser. Unfortunately, he is not in this race anymore. And I do wonder what happened. I wonder if I can maybe get a indication as to what happened with those guys. As 4 more laps of this race to go, and we are almost on the end of lap 29. I will say the cars still sound pretty nice, even considering the fact that they're V6 turbo hybrids. The cars seem to have grown in terms of the sound aspect over the years. They never used to sound great when they first came in around 2014, but have definitely improved a lot since then. And now you have that growl of the engine at low speed as well, which has its own nice characteristics. Oddly similar to the same sort of sound that the Acura engine has for the LMDH crowd. They're both V6 turbo hybrids. I wonder if there's something to that. Riley Jacob, of course, man of the hour so far. Took the lead of the race and really hasn't looked back since. Or even Horgeland obviously having a bit of a difficult time of it to try and get up to that P2. Start maybe not so great for Ben either, as Rowley has also had some issues every now and then, but for the most part, pretty clean stuff. Managing to pass his teammate earlier on in the race. On lap 24, we'll show that once again. Rowley down the main straight. I believe he's already gotten past his teammate in the pit lane. And that was it. That's all she wrote. But the man of the hour so far has been Riley Jacob. Untouchable, if we're being completely honest. but not fastest driver. That does go to Oyvind, which puts it quite close between the two of them. Still. If I quickly load up the point systems. So we can get an idea on what the two are going to be on after this. So it is 25 points for first and 22 points for second. If the driver in second position has gained an extra point for being the fastest lap, then of course that'll only put it to a 2-point difference between the two, which is not actually that bad. A 2-point difference, considering they're on the same points at the moment, obviously puts the gap at 2 points. And then if in the sprint, if Oyvind can use the traffic to his advantage and be 2 positions up on his teammate, and what that's going to mean is that that gap goes back down to pretty much equal again. And from the looks of it, Riley, Oyvind, and Rowley will be your championship standings, or rather driver standings, top 3, with Hannes dropping from currently leading the championship probably down to 4th position. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, where that ends up going, as we are on the final lap of the race. Some of you may say check his records, but I don't think there's going to be any of that this time out. I believe everyone else is just going to have a nice drive to the end, and we're going to be all nice and relaxed. There's going to be no drama on the final lap, and everyone's going to make it nice and easy. That's the hope anyway. Riley Jacob, though, looks like he cannot put a foot wrong right now. Won't get fastest lap of the race, of course, but a win nonetheless will put him up, higher up in the championship standings. And rounding through the last couple of corners we go. Penultimate corner for Riley Jacob. Just needs to navigate the final corner, and that will be a race win for Riley Jacob, the car number 17. His teammate Oyvind 7 seconds back. It was a pretty dominant result for Oyvind and Riley for the Race Lab Esports team. And finishing in 3rd position, last driver on the podium for our feature race, Rowley Schilter does take that 3rd position, with Ben Goldthorpe finishing in 4th position. Hannes will cross the line for 5th. And Hannes' teammate, Gianluca Iliano, finishing in 6th. Alex Shanna will cross the line for 7th, and has done already. Frank Bisa still needs to finish the race, of course, but will finish in 8th position. And I believe that is all the runners we have. So we'll have a warm-up, followed by then the sprint race, where after the sprint we will talk to some of the podium guys and see what their thoughts were. But the results of our heat race are as follows on your screen for you. And we do see our top 3, Riley Jacob, Oyvind Haugland, and Rowley Schilter, with Oyvind Haugland gaining a bonus point for fastest lap in the feature race. So he will actually be on 23 points rather than 22 points. Ben Goldthorpe there in 4th position, gaining 18 points, with Hannes P5, Gianluca P6, Alex Shanna P7, Frank Bisa P8, Jacob Beiser P9, Angel Ponce P10. And further down the field, we do have... Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We do have Andrew Bedrosian and Troy Banks to end off our grid. Warm-up time now, of course, for the race. The sprint race. But we will see who can end up winning the sprint. 10-lap race. It's going to be a pretty mental one. And while we're in our warm-up, we will just hear a quick word from one of our sponsors in Extreme Scoring.
Allow Extreme Scoring to do the work for you.
Of course, Extreme Scoring, one of our partners here that we work incredibly closely with to try and get everything sorted for the league in terms of helping us with points, helping us with pretty much everything we need in terms of an admin point of view. The only thing they can't help us with is making cups of coffee. But in the time between the heats, let's once again just go over what happened in that first race. We saw a pretty good start overall from Riley Jacob, and Øyvind Haugland was able to really capitalize on the mistake that Ben Goldthorpe made off the start. And pretty much Riley ran away with it, and it was left to a battle further down the field to really decide what was going on and what was going to be the final result. A couple of incidents going in the way of Alex Shanna and the Bicers caused maybe some unfortunate friction there between the two. But we'll have to wait and see what happens beyond that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've got anyone for interviews. But if anyone does have any questions about anything, feel free to ask away. We'll try and answer those as much as we can. If you ask me for current point standings, I will attempt my best at doing the mental maths on that one. All I know is Riley Jacob and Øyvind Haugland are currently your leaders of the championship. I don't know exactly what their point totals are on, but that's all I know so far. There's 30 seconds to go. Before we get racing all over again for the sprint. 10-lap sprint race. With a standing start, which makes things a little bit spicy. Are we going to see anyone potentially dive bomb into turn 1? It's basically going to be a qualifying race, really, in the grand scheme of things. It's put on your qualifying setup with a bit more fuel and go absolutely nuts on some soft tyres. And here we are, gridding up. As what you will notice, the entire grid has been reversed for our sprint race. Now that's going to make things interesting. as a couple of these drivers, not necessarily known for their starts, are the ones further up the order. But redemption, maybe, for this man, Frank Bisa, part of the Bisa Racing team. Of course, has to worry about Alex Shanna on the inside for the Lumos team. I do love how this overlay will show the actual image of the car. A couple of drivers actually having missed the start of the race. So Angel is going to lead us away. And that is the green flag. We are go. And Angel has a horrible start off the beginning there. And Alexander Shanna is able to take the lead. And already we're going to go 3 wide into turn 1. Gianluca on the outside. Hannah's maybe looking to the inside. And Alex Shanna just having to defend from it all. With Rowley sitting behind. Riley Jacob already having a great start with Oyvind as well. Pushing through. Ben Goldthorpe. Jacob Bisa. Troy Banks and Andrew not making the start, not taking part in the sprint race, are going to miss out on points, of course, because of that. Going back up further, already Gianluca even making a little bit of a mistake. In fact, no, that was Alex Shanna making a mistake. And already off the circuit is Alex Shanna. He went off track once, let's see that incident again. Locked up going into turn 4 or 5, I can't remember which, and that is going to be Alex's race over with pretty much in a sprint. You're not going to be really gaining much back there, but oh no, Frank Bisa, you've been in this position before, my friend. Wonder if he's going to be getting some PTSD right now from Alex Shanna being so close. As Riley Jacob and Oyvind Orgeland are both trying to make their way through, trying to make their way past Rowley Scheitler, and also trying to catch up to the back of Hannes and Gianluca further up the field. The sprint race already providing quite a bit more action here at the start, and we're only 1 lap in, 9 more to go. Really trying to do a good job at the moment of staying with Hannes, trying to stay within the DRS train, because once the DRS train starts getting opened, unfortunately that is all she wrote for Gianluca, and Gianluca is going to keep losing positions after positions, you would imagine, having to probably harvest DRS already, having to worry about the attack ERS as well, as potentially move being made here from Riley Jacob, but no, he thinks better of it for now, wants to just stay in the DRS. Wants to just save his tyres, potentially. Not make anything risky just yet. As further down the order, Ben Goldthorpe, again, not having the greatest of starts, really. In the grand scheme of things, is trying to push his way further up the order. And just has to get past this driver for now. Angel further up ahead. As Hannes, fastest lap so far with a 1:15.4. As Ben Goldthorpe tried to cut to the inside. Immediately, Angel responds, going to the inside line. So Ben just stays on his line. And this will probably be moved done, but unfortunately not. It doesn't look like it, but around the outside, the two almost touch. Very, very close driving indeed. But that is moved done from Ben Goldthorpe, and now he can hunt on the back of Frank Bisa, who is trying to hunt down on the back of Alex Shanna. But all eyes on this battle for the lead so far. For 3rd position, developing between Rowley and Riley. 2 drivers who are constantly going to get their names confused throughout the stream. I'm absolutely certain of it. But with Rowley having the DRS on Hannes and Riley having the DRS on Rowley, I don't think any of them are really going to gain an advantage on each other. They're all going to be pretty standard. And they're just going to be pretty easy going so far. Riley Schilter not able to really find any moves just yet. Everyone having DRS on each other in this top 5. And this top 5 is certainly the battle you want to watch, as Oyvind with a 1:15.2, fastest of the top 5 so far. As Rowley makes an uncharacteristic mistake, that's going to allow Riley Jacob to maybe try and go around the outside, and around the outside with ease goes Riley Jacob, as Oyvind follows through as well. That puts Rowley now down into P5 and potentially on the back end of a losing battle. Of course, we do know how quick these two Racing Lab Esports drivers are. And is Rowley going to be able to hold on? Needs to stay in the DRS to have a chance, really, because once he loses DRS, if Oyvind still has DRS on his teammate and Riley has DRS on the cars in front, it'll be very difficult for anything to really get done. I want to give a massive shout out to Gianluca and Hannes at the moment as well, holding it down in P1 and P2 after getting 6 positions off the start thanks to a pretty uncharacteristic poor start from some of the drivers a bit further up. And then Jacob Beiser, Troy Banks and Andrew not really getting into the fight to begin with. But move being made here, you have to imagine Hannes has to hit the go button, has to go right now. Give it absolutely everything and start running away, because otherwise you're going to find you're going to have a very fast, hard-charging Riley Jacob battling right in your mirror, and that is not a sight you want to see, especially considering how fast he was in the heat race. Oyvind, of course, having to try and fight for that place as well, and there may be a battle between the two teammates, actually, Oyvind and Riley, but no, Oyvind backing out for now. We'll have to wait and see whether or not that stays all nice buddy-buddy, or whether they get the gloves off and start fighting between the two teammates. You would imagine, of course, these two are going to end up being first and second at some point. Riley Jacob making the move on Gianluca, and Oyvind coming up the inside. Very, very opportunistic move, and even allows Rowley to maybe try and take a bite of the cherry up the inside. Going into the fast sweepers. One of them is going to have to back off, and I don't think it's going to be Oyvind, and indeed it's not. Rowley now having to just sit behind and gets all the way on the grass, loses so much time, even with DRS, probably not able to recover that time back, because everyone else in front of him also has DRS. 1:14.9 fastest lap so far for Hannes, who is leading the race. Riley Jacob sitting behind with DRS, so potentially maybe able to make a move at some point. But all eyes on this battle for third position right now between Gianluca and Oyvind. Gianluca does not have DRS, keep in mind, so Oyvind with the advantage. And we'll have to wait and see, will the move be made into the hairpin? You'd imagine Oyvind wants to get the hurry up, wants to keep up with his teammate, so then they can both take a 1-2 in this race. As Rowley is trying to hang on as well, is trying to gain some time. And Oyvind just not quite close enough to do it in the hairpin, but you would imagine down the main straight, if he can keep within this 3/10 gap, that's going to be all she wrote. Everyone backing up massively. Gianluca backing everyone up. Maybe a little bit of tactics going on. If Riley's able to not attack Hannes as easily, maybe Gianluca can hold them up so that way, if Hannes does lose that position to Riley Jacob, they're not going to have to worry about being attacked by Oyvind. But Oyvind does finally get the move done. DRS assistance down the main straight. Unfortunately, no defense for that. And now Gianluca having to defend from Rowley, who we know is part of a sister team. So, you wonder, are the sister teams going to play nice with each other? Or is it all gloves off for this? As we will jump back on board with our battle for the lead. Hannes trying to defend as much as they can. Has to defend for another 3 laps if they can. Well, 3 laps after this one at least. With DRS though, it's not going to be easy. You may have to try and save some ERS where you can. Save on the tires where you can. Because Riley Jacob is coming for that position, and he is going to be all over the back of the gearbox of Hannes down this main straight. Oyvind without any DRS. You're going to find it hard to catch up to these two in front. And we see with the DRS how quickly Riley's able to go. He's going to go for the move, actually. Up the inside, very late move. But indeed one that works off for Riley. And that gives him P1 in the sprint, P1 in the main. Is Riley going to dominate the entire weekend? Qualified on pole position, of course, for the main race as well. Rowley does indeed get past Gianluca as well with DRS assistance down the straight. Unfortunately, nowhere else really to make any moves, so we now go back to Oyvind. And can Oyvind catch up to Hannes and make that move done as well? As I say, going to be a little bit difficult without the DRS to be able to catch up. With Hannes having DRS on Riley, it makes it a little bit difficult. But Oyvind has proven time and time again he is fast. One of the fastest drivers on the track. But I believe fastest lap point will go to Hannes at the moment, unless someone can do it right in the death of this race. No DRS assistance for anyone in the top 3, so it is a sprint. Oh no, maybe Hannes actually does have DRS, just about got the DRS before the line. So, was able to catch up and leave Oyvind a little bit further back. If Oyvind isn't careful here, he might have Rowley to deal with. And a very tight battle between Frank Bisa and Alex Shanna further down the field. I would pay attention, but unfortunately we do have a battle brewing for third. And this is going to mean big things for the championship standings. If Oyvind loses this position to Rowley, it does mean, I believe, Riley Jacob will take the lead of the championship, and it's going to be by a significant margin at this point in the championship. I know it's only round 2, but anytime you can get a lead in the championship, it is a good one to have. Putting a car between himself and his teammate, probably the easiest way to do that and gain that gap. Because unless Oyvind can make a move, he's got 2 laps to do it. And we do know Oyvind is quick without DRS assistance with Hannes. Potentially Oyvind gets within DRS and makes the move on the final lap, but he will have to do it this lap by. We are on your final lap of your sprint. This is absolutely flown by, as nobody going any quicker, so fastest lap will go to Hannes. You would have to imagine, unless people have been saving attack mode, ERS are giving it absolutely everything right now, as Oyvind already onto the back of Hannes, potentially going to try and look for a move going down into the hairpin. You would have to imagine with the DRS assistance, potentially some lockups and some mistakes from Hannes now, being pressured by Oyvind. From the Racing Lab Esports team, we will try and see whether or not Hannes can hold off. Can Hannes hold off the very hard-charging Norwegian? DRS will flick open. 3/10 the gap. And unfortunately, not quite close enough to make anything happen just yet. Oyvind, if you want to make a move, you've got to do it in the next 2 corners. Otherwise, that's going to be all she wrote. Oyvind incredibly close going into the last 2 corners. Very 2 fast corners here to finish the lap. Riley Jacob will win your race in the sprint one more time. Oyvind drag race to the line with Hannes, and unfortunately, Hannes does not manage to lose that position for Oyvind. Oyvind getting a very well-earned P3, but definitely, if the race was 1 lap longer, you would have to imagine he would have gotten that P2. And Rowley finishing P4, Gianluca P5, Frank Bisa P6, Alex Shanna P7, Ben Goldthorpe P8, and Angel finishing P9 in the sprint. And I need to get my breath back after that. That was nuts. Absolutely nuts. We'll have to wait and see if we can get some interviews in here from Riley, Hannes, and Oyvind. And I believe if we put up the results for our feature race, our sprint race, then we'll see how the points go out. Hannes was the driver with the fastest lap of the race, so they will gain another bonus point. So they do actually tie Riley Jacob for most amount of points earned in this race. Unless, of course, safest driver goes to Riley Jacob, in which case then Riley will earn even more points. But what a sprint race that was. We'll wait and see if we can get the drivers in for interviews. Otherwise, short sprint race, that's all she said, all she wrote. That was action from start to finish in the sprint. Absolutely. We'll see if we can maybe get the drivers in for an interview, but I don't know if any of them are around at the moment. Let's have a look and see. I do believe everyone is starting to disconnect from the race, but what race it was. And let me just double check the results for our main race as well. Riley, Oyvind, and Rowley are your top three for that as well. Ah, there they are. There's the two. It's almost like they sensed it once I started typing. But we'll hear from our winner of both races, Riley Jacob, first. Let's get an interview with him and see what he thought. Riley Jacob, congratulations, my friend, on winning in both races. You know, the sprint and the main. It's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. That sprint was chaos at the start, but
yeah,
we got stuck on a little bit of a DRS train, but just waited for mistakes and then tried to capitalize on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of the main race, I mean, you qualified on pole, you just set off, and that was pretty much it. It seemed like you were just gone, and there wasn't really anyone able to catch up.
Yeah, I looked at the fixed setup, which I figured most people would be running, and I noticed that it had 5mm rear wing, so I just tried to find a better setup that would punish the people that use that setup. And I went with 0 rear wing, and I think it paid off.
Well, there you go. Riley doing a bit more in terms of setup work than maybe some other drivers may have done. But I mean, in terms of the race itself, you said the sprint was a bit more chaotic, and it certainly seemed it, with almost a very slow start from the leaders at the beginning. You said there was a DRS train forming as well. You know, you said you were waiting for mistakes, but was there any other strategy? If the drivers didn't make a mistake, did you have any idea on how you were going to get past?
No, I messed up the sprint last week, so this week I really just wanted to secure points. So I was completely fine with sitting in the train and protecting 4th place. And if any opportunities presented themselves, I was just going to take them as they came.
Yeah, and of course they did present themselves with DRS passes down the main straight, and I mean, what easier place to do it than that? And, you know, it ended up resulting in basically a win in both, which means I do believe that you will be taking the lead of the championship as well, which after the second round, I mean, maybe it's a little bit too early to say, but it's got to feel good at least, right?
Yeah, it's definitely nice to look at, that's for sure.
And just before we do let you head off, is there anyone else you want to give a massive shout out to? Anyone else you want to thank?
Just a shout out to Race Labs Esports out of Norway. It's the team that I'm filling in for with Oyvind.
There you go. Absolutely. And we will hear from your teammate in a second, of course. And Riley, mate, congratulations again on a win in both. And, you know, we get a nice little bit of time off, at least, in terms of you get a week to prep for the next race. And it's at Silverstone. You excited for that one?
Honestly, Silverstone's one of my weaker tracks, so it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Probably going to use Oyvind to try and learn from, I imagine, and see whether or not you can gain any experience.
Might be a good week for Oyvind.
Well, there we go. We've heard it. Let's see whether or not Oyvind can repeat what Riley did this week at Silverstone. But Riley, congratulations again, mate, and we'll let you head off. Celebrate with some champagne, some victory ice cream, whatever it is you do.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
And now we will hear from Oyvind, of course, his teammate, and see what Oyvind thought of how he did in the sprint and the main event. Oyvind, well done, mate, on a second place. Obviously, this isn't your first time here in the IFL, is it? So it's nice to be near up the top, I'd imagine, and maintaining the fact that you are one of the quickest drivers within this league.
I must say, it feels really good to be the first loser today, since Riley he was blistering fast. But yeah, so I've been racing here before, and it was quite similar. I was the second one at that point as well, but I have a lot of fun with you guys.
Well, that's always cool to see, and you know, the sprint race, maybe not necessarily the result you were hoping for. Obviously, with your teammate Riley taking the win, you were hoping for maybe a 1-2 for the team, but unfortunately with the DRS train and, well, Luca proving a little bit harder to pass than maybe you would have liked in some situations. But, I mean, overall, a P3 is still going to feel pretty good on the sprint.
Yeah, it was nice, and it was a lot of fun. So I had a bit of a poor start. Me and Rolly, we got stuck behind someone down the main straight. So after that, it was just get what you can without crashing too much. And I got pretty close though to an incident, but luckily it went okay. So yeah, I'm quite happy. It's okay. Riley's the faster one this week, and then next time I just have to get him back.
Absolutely. Well, next round is at Silverstone, of course, and he did say that it's not necessarily a quicker track for him. It is one of his weaker tracks, so potentially it's your week next week, and then we'll just keep flip-flopping until we get to the final round of the season at Interlagos, where hopefully you two can battle it out for the championship win.
Exactly. So is like Red Bull Ring on this calendar at some point?
Yes, I believe that is, if I can pull up the schedule, I want to say that is midway through.
Oh, that's perfect, because that's my favorite track. And I'm gonna feed Riley with all the bad setups I have, and he's gonna go for it.
Well, hopefully he's not watching the stream, because otherwise he may have just heard that. But hey, look, it's just jokes, you know. It's just they're really good setups. You just have to, you know, put faith in it.
Exactly, but I think I'm gonna get him at some point this year. He's got the upper hand now, and he's handling this car really well. So that's pretty cool. But I also see a lot of other people are getting really quick on qualifying as well. Mm-hmm. So I think this is gonna be a really fun season. And Hannes, Mr. Consistent, he's always gonna be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I will say, obviously, it is only round 2, but is there anyone that you're sort of looking out for? Anyone that you want to sort of, you know, see how their progress is and maybe think are going to be the ones challenging you two? Because obviously, at the moment, you and your teammate Riley, you're the ones to beat. You're the ones on the top. Is there anyone you're worried about?
I think it's like Hannes is always really solid, and Rolly has been he's become pretty fast lately, so I think he's gonna be pretty fast, very very fast. So I think it could be interesting. But also, if we meet some of the tracks that some people are really comfortable with, I think it can all change up pretty quickly. And yeah, I think those two would be the main ones that I'm looking out for. Of course, Riley he's okay, but he still needs to get some speed.
Yeah. Of course. But hey, mate, as always, it's an absolute pleasure getting to talk with you guys on track. And, you know, start of a new season, we're still early doors, you know? Maybe, you know, you're just giving Riley a bit of false confidence, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm doing. So now he's really comfortable in the broadcast waiting room, listening to this broadcast, thinking, I got Øyvind, but really he does not. Or does he? I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I must say thank you so much for you guys hosting this league and doing this broadcast. I really appreciate it. It's so fun to have something to look forward to for the Saturday. My girlfriend, on the other hand, she's not that happy with this being on a Saturday, but she's very patient. So that's that's good. So thank you to you guys.
Yeah, massive shout out to Miss Horgland there on seeing whether or not you're giving them the chance to race, which is arguably the best thing she could do, right? That's definitely up there.
Exactly.
But yes, mate, before we let you go, is there anyone else you want to thank? Anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
I just want to say thanks to everyone racing today. It was really clean, and I could see it's like we almost had some incidents, and people have just been quite respectful on the track. Hopefully, I was too. So I just say the racing here is really cool. So I appreciate that a lot, and I look forward to the rest of the season.
Well, there you go. You heard it from the man himself. The racing's really good. Get involved. Come join us. Why not? The more the merrier, right?
Exactly. More people.
But yeah, so Oyvind, we'll let you head off, mate, and, celebrate with your champagne, your victory ice cream, whatever it is you do to celebrate on a win.
All of the above.
And, hey, I mean, I'm not sure if you're a fan of sports car racing, but you got the Daytona 24 to look forward to as well if you're a fan in the real world. So
there's a fellow Norwegian that is racing now. His name is Dennis Olsen. So I'm going to be following that. They has got some problems with the setup or something with the car, but I'm going to see if he's still in it.
Well, there we go. So a bit of Norwegian love there between the two of you, and hey, you did well today. Hopefully he can do well in the Daytona 24. But as always, mate, we'll let you head off and go celebrate.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night.
Cheers, buddy. And of course, that is it. That is all. That is us wrapped up, done, dusted. Heard from our two podium sitters. Unfortunately, wasn't able to hear from either Hannes or Rowley, but I will see if we can get those in next time by. But that will do it from us here at the IFL. From round number 2, Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Peace and love as always. See you all next time.